I'm joined now by our political editor, Vuyo Mvoko, to take this and, of course, the last 24 hours, which has not been a good one for government regulations. Let's deal with the quarantine issue. So Joe Partler saying there was really no need for AfriForum to go to court. Do you agree?
Indeed, he is correct, because the government hasn't actually legislated what is probably the most preferred position, and we're going to get into that in a second. But as regulations stand, if you are at risk or may have contracted the virus, then you'll be, you owe everyone. You owe it to everybody, because remember, with the management of this pandemic, one of the most difficult things is that for you to be or to stay healthy and not contract the virus, you depend as much on what you do as you depend on what I do. As a colleague who works with you in this office, or as someone you catch a taxi with, or as someone you bump into at a shopping center. So there is that difficulty there. Take the case of the one guy who, while he knew that he was positive or had contracted the virus, decided to hop onto and go to
From
Limpopo.
Alexandra,
Exactly.
Right up to Limpopo.
So there are such people. So you are taking care of such eventualities. Of course, some people say, "Oh, this is all draconian," but there is that reality that there are people who can prove to be reckless and not care at all about the lives of others.
So basically,
if they don't care about
then you've lost your chance. Then government can force you. I think there was much discussion a little earlier this afternoon about a comment made by the president on the 14th of May, which did seem to suggest actually government can immediately force you. Let's just have a listen.
In fact, it was the preferred position.
Let's have a quick listen.
What do you think of the debate around the mandatory hospitalization of patients that have coronavirus in order to stop the spread of the virus anywhere else?
Well, I think it's... Once you have the virus, as the doctor will say, you become infectious. So what we've been saying is that once you have it, we've got to have you isolated. Because if you're not isolated, it's likely, and it's not even likely, it's a sure case that you're going to infect a whole range of other people that you'll be in touch with. So it's not a violation of your rights, it's actually the securing of the rights of other people and your own life as well. So we believe that it is a correct thing to do, that those who have the virus should be put in hospital so that we can manage the virus and try and, one, isolate them, and two, make sure that we manage it and we help them and to get their bodies to be in a situation where they can fight the virus. Because we don't have a vaccine, we don't have a cure, so it is important for the sake of others that they should be in isolation and quarantine.
Do you think that sort of contradicts what Partler was saying in any way?
No, not at all. He actually, in my view, stated his preferred sort of view or position on the matter. Quite probably, or most probably, off guard by our journalist, Govan Whittles, who on the day had to ask him that question because that was the conversation among many people on that particular day. But it's not, as the Deputy Minister of Health has said, something that's legislated. It's a preferred position, taking into account what we were talking about earlier, that there are people who simply do not care and would, even though they know that they have contracted the virus, would still go about, planning their life as though nothing had happened.
So am I correct? After today's judgment, this is how it works.
Yes.
If you cannot self-isolate at home,
Yes.
let's say you live in a very small home,
Yes.
you have to, by law, go into an isolation
Yes, and the
facility.
government will actually
Will help
ensure
you.
that, yes, they provide you with, because other people live in
Exactly.
big homes where
if you've
you
got-
can't afford the luxury of dedicating a room to somebody to
And if you
self-isolate
violate,
with different ablution
after saying
facilities.
you're going to do the right thing, then they can force you.
Exactly.
Now let's deal with the other issue. This time yesterday I was hastily trying to read through the Pretoria High Court judgment about the regulations at level 3 and 4 are not being constitutional, not being valid, and of course they stay as they are for now to give government a chance. We haven't actually heard government's response.
Yes.
And I know there's been lots of legal opinion, and we're going to get to some of that later in the show. We're speaking to Thuli Madonsela. She's raised questions around the judgment. But I'm interested to hear from you about the potential political fallout. We know that our president has been very upfront, saying, look, we've had to run and make new rules as on the fly. We've sometimes got it wrong. Sorry about that. So bearing that in mind, do you think that this is a massive political blow to government or not?
It is a blow. It is a blow, there's no question about that, but how it gets handled by all and sundry beyond this point is, for me, what is more important. Let's take the executive, right? The president conceded only a few days ago that mistakes have been made, other people have been overzealous, some ministers contradicting one another, for which he apologized and said, hopefully going forward we'll deal with these matters. So mistakes have indeed been made. So one hopes that the executive will look at the issues that the judge has actually raised and begin to correct those things, instead of doing what some people are saying they should do, which is to appeal that ruling. Because my view is that there are a lot of people, all those people who agree with the people who went to court and actually won, feel all triumphalist at this moment, which in my view, notwithstanding the mistakes that have been made, is not going to take us forward as we continue to grapple with issues that we have never been exposed to before. So on the part of the executive, I think a lot of consideration and thorough sort of going through what the court said needs to happen, so that whatever decision they make, even if they decide to appeal, they must do so not with sort of vengeance or sense of retaliation or anything like that, but one, correcting the wrongs, and on the other, making sure that if they have a reason to still approach the court, whether it's a constitutional court, they do so with very clear and unambiguous intentions. That's the executive. But I think for the parliament, there's also lessons here, because had they played their oversight role, they've been missing in action. For instance, you look at the one session I watched, which was the NCOP having both ministers of cooperative governance and health. It left a lot to be desired. Parliament's oversight role has left a lot to be desired over this period. So there are lessons for them there, for them to actually do the right things. You look at the judgment, the ruling itself, how it's been worded, and the loopholes that it has kind of opened up, says, yes, admittedly, with an urgent application, as some people have explained throughout the course of the day, some of the things sort of kind of fall through the cracks because it's urgent, as the name suggests, and so there isn't sufficient time to look at certain things. So the judge didn't do a great deal of justice to this whole episode by not ensuring that in both the wording and everything that went with it, everything is actually watertight. But that's no reason for anybody to want to exploit that for some reason or the other. So it's calling for cool heads among all of us to say, what matters to South Africans right now?
Let's keep our priorities right.
Exactly. Let's keep our eye on the ball and not feel like, oh, the judge has given me enough reason to celebrate and to say, yeah, we told you, government, you are all wrong. I think it's calling for cool heads and a great deal of maturity.
And it's a very rational response, which is really what we need at this time. Thank you very much, Vuyo Mvoko. And also important that we are in line with our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, but also people are going, oh, well, we're out of level 4 now. The reality is we may go back to level 4, and then those regulations regulations will come into play again. So really crucial. And thank you very much for your insights this evening. That's our political editor, Vuyo Mvoko.